What is up guys, Alex from Lakey Wargames here and welcome to today's video. Today we're going to be checking out the Ossiarch Bonereapers Battle Tome FAQ for June 2023. And, oh, that poor Gothizzar Harvester. Let's jump on into it. Alrighty, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the, it's just one page, there's not that much to go through to be honest today, but there are some big and interesting changes even within this small FAQ for the Ossiarch Bonereapers. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the FAQ up on the screen as we go, as we talk about things, and there's also a link in the description below if you wish to open up the PDF version. This is from the Warhammer community website, it's completely free to download, open, print off, do whatever you want with it. In the description below if you want to bring it up for yourself. So let's waste no time at all and let's just jump on into the first of the few questions, because the first few things on this are just nice, straight, easy changes, and then we get our little bit of spice at the end. When we get there I will point it out and I'm sure you will be able to notice it. So the first question is, if a mortal wound caused by the Curse of Years spell is negated, do I roll another dice as described within the rules text? And the answer is yes. Now this is a really nice change for anyone who runs Arcan the Black. If you don't know, Curse of Years is a spell, has a range of 18 which gets boosted up to 24 thanks to Arcan being able to boost his own spell range. You pick one enemy unit within range and visible to the caster and you roll 10 dice. For each 6 you cause a mortal wound to the enemy, and then you get to pick up those dice and you roll them again and it goes down to 5s. Then you pick up those dice and for every one that you scored you then roll them again, then you roll them for 4s, then you roll them for 3s, then you roll them for 2s, etc, etc, until you either run out of dice because you didn't roll the 2s or the enemy doesn't suffer any wounds. So for example, if you rolled your 10 dice and you got 5 6s, which would be amazing, but we'll just go with it, then you would for the second time pick up 5 dice and look for 5s on those 5 dice, and say if you got 3 5+, then you'd pick up 3 dice, now you're rolling for 4s. If you got 2, you pick up 2 dice, now you're rolling for 3s with those 2 dice, again until it runs out. Now, by the wording of this, if the mortal wound is negated, so say if someone has a ward save and they don't take that mortal wound as a wound and they just save it, then you still get to continue rolling until basically you run out of dice or they die. So that's fantastic. That makes Curse of Years even stronger versus things with wards, because if they do save the ward, then as long as you're rolling whatever bit of the dice you're on, so if it's 4+, 3+, etc, etc, as long as you're meeting the criteria to keep rolling the dice again, then you can continue to do so. So if you're already running Arcan, that's just a massive boon to Curse of Years, which is great. The second question in here is, can I unbind spells that are cast at the end of the hero phase by a Mortisan Soulmason with its Mortec Throne ability? For anyone who's not familiar, the Mortec Throne is the one where at the end of the hero phase you can roll a dice for this unit. On a 1 nothing happens. On a 2 to a 5 you can cast its War Scroll spell of Soul Guide once, even if it's already attempted to cast it already, and on a 6 you can cast Soul Guide D3 more times. Basically what you can do is, already in the hero phase you can give up your chance of attempting to cast a spell to unbind a spell that's on the board. So by using the 2 spells you can already cast, if you then get a bonus cast through the Mortec Throne ability, whether you get the 2 to a 5 or you get D3 more casts, you can use them to unbind a spell instead, which is nice. I mean, who doesn't love more unbinds as and when you need them? If you needed to unbind something more than you did than casting Soul Guide, or you got Soul Guide off D3 times, you've already got Soul Guide where you wanted it, you can now unbind a spell with the extra casts that you would have made per se, rather than being redundant and not being able to put them on anything useful, you can now just go and unbind some spells if you've got the chance. So that's really cool. The next one is to add the following to the end of the first paragraph, and that is, only Ossiarch Bonereapers can issue Ossiarch commands. I mean, that's nice and simple. I don't think anyone was trying to play that anywhere out of that, and to be honest that's only going to affect I think team formats, because OBR has no allies, and I don't think anyone can ally OBR into them. So yeah, I can't see who's trying to use the OBR commands that isn't already an Ossiarch Bonereaper model, but yeah, there we go. So there is that one, just cleaned up. Only OBR can use the only OBR command, so that just makes sense. The next one is quite a big and interesting one, and that's for Petrifex Elite Unstoppable Juggernauts. You change the text, so it currently sits at it's -1 to damage caused to Petrifex Elite Hekatos units or Petrifex Elite Gothizzar Harvesters. You now change the text from, instead of being -1 damage, it's subtract 1 from wound rolls for combat attacks that target friendly Petrifex Elite Hekatos or Gothizzar Harvester units. So that's quite big. I know a lot of people were really unhappy with the -1 to damage because it's very, very strong in that current wording. But to be honest, I mean, -1 to wound isn't the worst thing in the world. If you're casting Drain Vitality on the enemy, you can now make them -1 to hit, and then when they fight you, they're going to also be -1 to wound if you're Petrifex Elite and meet the keywords. But that is quite a big change, so that's just going to make things harder to hurt you, which I suppose is the whole point of Petrifex Elite. But if that big damage does get through, even with the negatively modified wound rolls, they're still going to be able to inflict big damage on you, which is, I suppose, healthy for the game. And just, yeah, a nice change. Not a lot of people were happy with -1 to damage, so those damage 2 units, things like ogres and things, are not going to feel so bad now when they crash into your big Petrifex Elite line. So, yeah, good change. Still strong, but not oppressively strong, I suppose, when combined with other things. So, yeah, we like that one. Now, on to the second to last, our penultimate one, and this is the big one, the big, spicy, juicy part of the FAQ, and that is poor Mr. Gothizzar Harvester. We are changing the Bone Harvest rule. So let's read through it first and then talk about why and what has changed. So, for the FAQ, you change the Bone Harvest text to, at the end of the combat phase, you can pick one friendly Ossiarch Bonereapers unit that is within 6 inches of this unit and had models slain in that phase. If you do so, roll a dice for each model from that unit that was slain in that phase on a 4+, and then there's the 3 bullet points that you get to choose from. These 3 bullet points are the same requirements as the wording is now, so if you're familiar with the Harvester, that hasn't changed at all. It's just that first top text that is really, really different. We'll quickly go through the bullet points, and they are: if the slain model had a wounds characteristic of 4 or less, you can heal 1 wound allocated to this unit. If the slain model had a wounds characteristic of 5 or more, you can heal up to 3 wounds allocated to its unit. And if there are no wounds currently allocated to the unit you picked, you can return a number of slain models to it that have a combined wounds characteristic equal to or less than the number of wounds you have healed. You cannot pick the same unit with this ability more than once per phase. So, there are a lot of big changes to how this has worked. Currently, well, before, I suppose we should say, when the new book dropped, the Harvester's Bone Harvest and how it used to work in the old book was you would roll a dice every time a model was slain within X amount of inches. It used to be 3 in the old book. It's now 6 inches in the brand new 3rd edition book, which is a really big range. And any time a model is slain within that 6-inch bubble, if the slain model was within range, you pick one friendly unit with this ability. You must pick which unit will use this ability if there was multiple of them. So if you had 2 Harvesters within range of the same unit, you could only use one of them, which is the same limitation now because you can only pick one unit to be affected by this new ability. And you'd roll a dice, and on a 4+, you pick one friendly Ossiarch Bonereapers unit within 6 inches, and then you apply the same healing as it was before. So, first things first, the first big change to this ability is that now you can only pick one friendly Ossiarch Bonereapers unit at the end of the combat phase. So before, it was just if anyone, so that's enemies and friendly models, was slain within that 6-inch bubble, you would roll a dice. Now, you can only pick one OBR unit, and it's only limited to the combat phase, and you can only attempt to roll as many dice as models were slain in that combat phase. So beforehand, if it was your turn, you are fighting the enemy, you kill 10 of their guys, then you get to roll 10 dice and you could heal into your unit. Then if they fought back and killed 5 of your guys, you were rolling 5 dice, and it's just great. Lots of healing, lots of awesomeness going on. Now, it's, I fight, doesn't matter how many of you I kill, it's only the casualties that I'm taking, and it's only in that combat phase. Before, it was just any slain model within the range, so if it got shot, if it got blasted apart by magic, whether it was combat, you would be rolling as you remove the model. As long as the unit wasn't completely wiped out, you would be rolling to return to that unit. You could harvest up units and heal into other units if they did get wiped out, but now you just pick one unit at the end of the combat phase and you can only heal back, or attempt to heal back, models that were slain in that combat phase. So that's huge. So you can no longer heal back from magic, you can no longer heal back from shooting. KO armies are going to absolutely laugh at OBR because they're just going to rock up to your Mortec line and they're just going to be like, oh, heal this, and then blast you apart. So that's really, really big, and that really affects the way that the Harvester is going to be healing. It's only saving grace in this new text for me personally, and we've been talking about this in the OBR Discord that we run. If you guys want to join, it's just a place to talk all OBR all the time. Lots of awesome people throwing out lots of awesome ideas. We talk about hobby, we talk about gaming, we talk about lists. There'll be a link in the description below for you to be able to join the Discord and join in all the fun. But yeah, the one big saving grace that we came to at the end is it is every combat phase. It's not limited to just your combat phase. So it is still a way to get out of turn healing, but again, it's only going to affect models that were slain in that combat phase. So if the enemy doesn't deal a lot of damage to you, you're not going to be rolling back. You're going to have to heal back in your hero phase. If the enemy is a shooting heavy army, again, something like KO, then that's just really going to hurt because they're just going to be blasting you apart from range and you can only heal back in your turn. The Harvester is not going to be any help to you at all. And yeah, it's just really, really painful. And the fact that you're only healing back your guys that were slain, because the thematic part of the Harvester is it's meant to be trundling along the battlefield. Anything that dies, it doesn't care what side you're on. It's just, if you're made of bone, I'm going to harvest you up and I'm going to recycle all your organs and your bone and just give it to the Mortisans to be able to make more guys with it. But now it's only friendly OBR as they're slain, so you are going to be healing a lot less and you're only going to be healing situationally because it's combat phase only. So that is absolutely huge. The last little part of the FAQ was just to add the single notes to the column for the Mortec Crawler and the Gothic Harvester, because it wasn't limited before that you could take them in multiples. Some people were trying to cheese it. I think it's just a meme thing. It was just missed off. So you could take like a unit of 3 Harvesters, and it was just a bit silly. So that's just been rectified, and doesn't really make a difference because we all knew that it wasn't intended to be that way. So yeah, it's nice to see that cleaned up. Overall, I think it's a decent FAQ. They've missed out a lot of the things that we wanted in the FAQ. Like, what's in here is okay, bar maybe butchering the Harvester completely. But there's things that were missed out, like Arcan and Kane's Reapers combination with the spell where someone can only target him and he can, have his range boosted to like 9 inches and cast it when he's not even in combat. So then enemies that are already locked into something else then can't fight at all because, he's laughing 9 inches away, you can only target me. He goes off and does his own thing. There's a few other things in this FAQ that would have been nice to have been seen. Like with Show of Superiority, the command trait where you roll a dice before your opponent spends any command points, and on a 5+ they must spend 2 command points to issue a command instead of 1. Obviously it works, you roll the dice before they spend any command points on the ability, but it's like if they only have the 1 CP left and they're trying to use it on a command point, and then obviously you bump the cost up to 2, it would have just been nice to have some cleaning up of the wording of, is that command then spent for the phase because it's before they spend command points on the ability, so now they can't afford it, so did they actually use it? Is the command point lost? That sort of thing. Little things like that would have been nice to be in here just to be cleaned up, because when you do read through them and you really go into it, you can work it out, but the text is just a little bit clunky in the way that it goes. Some of the timings on some of the abilities and such would have been nice to have those cleaned up in here, but instead they decided to kick the Harvester in the balls and yeah, really limit him. So I'm expecting now, when the General's Handbook comes around, I was expecting to see some points shuffle around, maybe a couple of the heroes. The Immortus Guard I expect to go up, the Mortec Crawler I expect to come down, mainly because it's got some great utility in its fight last, but its damage isn't quite there, so I don't think it's really worth 200 points. Whereas the Immortus Guard are obviously very efficient at 200 and will probably go up to 220-ish, if not higher, sort of where the Stalkers are. But now, with the changes to the Harvester, and that's going to make Mortek Guard a lot less efficient because they're going to be a lot easier to take out. I expect to see the Harvester come down. I don't think the Harvester is worth 210 anymore. And then Mortek Guard at 150 for 10. It's like, yes, we can make them very tanky, but you know, 20 Mortek Guard and a Harvester is a 510 point combination, and now that they've lost that sort of backbone to their healing against sort of all the damage, is going to be very, very painful to a lot of lists. It's going to make Crematorian, Mortek and like double Harvester spam a lot less efficient, so I do expect to see sort of more points tweaks, that I wouldn't see that happening until the General's Handbook comes out, but hopefully they address that as well. It won't be so bad if Mortek came down to like, I want to say they come down to like 140 for definite, but maybe 130. And if the Harvester drops down to like 180, maybe, then it might be a bit more worth it to take like a bigger Mortek block. Maybe just take one brick of 30 and have one Harvester behind it, because you are still healing in both combat phases. Yes, it's still great healing. Picking one unit isn't too bad. But yeah, compared to what it was, this is the sort of change I would have expected to have seen when the new tome came out. If they wanted to rework the way the Harvester works, I think they should have done it when the book dropped and not wait till a month after and FAQ'd it and just sort of ruined the Harvester. I'm being overly harsh on it, but yeah, that is a change I would have expected to have seen when the tomes changed guard and not in the FAQ so soon afterwards. So it's a bit of a strange one, but it is what it is, and as we do, as good OBR players will, we will adapt and we will come back stronger. So what are your thoughts on this FAQ? Is there any of the changes in here that you don't like? Is there anything in here that you do like? Do you think the Harvester is still worth it at its current points value? Where would you see him going in the future? Let me know in the comments down below your thoughts on this FAQ. Is there anything that you would have liked to have seen in the FAQ that isn't in the FAQ that hopefully they will address next time round? As always, guys, stay safe and happy wargaming. Psst. Hey you! Did you know that Lakey Wargames now has an official eBay store? You can buy yourself all kinds of pre-painted and new on sprue hobby goodness and support the channel at the same time. There's a link in the description below if you want to check it out. I'd greatly appreciate it, and it's a fantastic way to support the channel. Okay, see you in the next one.